All right, hey everybody, Anthony Spiteri here. So today I just wanted to go and have a quick look at Amazon Lightsail. So I'll be upfront and honest, I didn't actually know that this service existed in terms of what it actually did. So obviously in the AWS console, I've seen the service there for a number of years, but didn't really know what it was. And I guess the push for me to actually look at it was that I was setting up a new WordPress site this week. I was looking at an easy way to deploy that and just did a little bit of a search. I didn't want to deploy my own server hosted where I actually host my existing blog, anthonyspiteri.net. I wanted somewhere in the public cloud to start doing a few things there, and came across Lightsail, and probably ashamed I didn't actually know that it existed in its form before this. But I thought, if I don't know, maybe you guys don't know either. So here's a quick little look at it, and I wanted to take you guys through it because I think it's a really interesting sort of setup from AWS. And the thing about Lightsail, what it is, it's basically like a web hosting platform without the relative complexity of AWS. Because AWS, the console, if we look at it, it can be complex, right? If you log into the console and take a look, you've got all these services, right? And they now stretch all the way down the slider. So really significant in terms of how many services you can actually get off of AWS. And it's you shouldn't be ashamed to sort of not know all of them. You can't know all of them. They each serve a specific purpose. Obviously, we know the big ones, EC2, all the automation and serverless stuff around Lambda, and then S3 storage. Obviously, people will go to the public cloud for that probably first. And then all the VPCs and whatnot, which a lot of organizations and enterprises use to host their applications, and then leverage the serverless and leverage the platform as a service, the rational databases and whatnot. But, what if you wanted to host a basic website? And this was the question I think that the AWS team were asking themselves. Obviously from a cost perspective, there's a bit of an unknown factor. There's always bill shock that comes with AWS or any public cloud. The cloud is not a charity, as we like to say. So I think where this came from was, just the ability to compete with guys like DigitalOcean and other guys that offer kind of more simplified ways to deploy applications. Okay, never be too complex. Never be able to extend beyond what it actually is, and that's virtual server storage, database, and networking. That's what I say, for a low, predictable price, and I think that's the key there. So if we go down and have a look on the website, simple web applications, websites, business software, and dev and test environments. And, where I think this comes into play really is in this simple web application, exactly the use case that I had for it, which was to create a WordPress site quick and easy. So if we go to the actual console, you can see that it's a lot more simplified than what the AWS console is in itself if you're looking for an EC2 instance, dashboard, or whatever it is. And this is the idea here. It's basically to get an application spun up as quickly as possible. You can see I've got one running here at the moment. You've got the ability to do instances, databases, so you can create some basic databases, networking, IP, DNS zones, load balancing, so everything that you'd need to stand up a web application, right? You can see here I've got a static IP assigned, and then storage. You can actually create a disk, so it's limited. It's not like you can actually create S3 buckets or anything from here, but it's all about creating disks and then maybe being able to attach it to the instance. And then snapshotting, which is for your backups as well. So, this is interesting because it offers an inbuilt snapshot way to back up your instances and your databases. But basically, apart from that, this is all it is. Pretty simple, right? So if we go to the instances, if I walk through the create instance setup, you can see here that at the moment, my favorite zone is US East 2. It's Ohio zone. We have our lab set up there for Veeam, so I like to keep things close to there. So you can change the availability zone. I believe it's available in almost every zone, if not all zones. Then you basically select your platform. What do you want to do? Do you want to deploy a Linux instance or a Windows instance? Obviously, if you've got Linux, you've got a lot more blueprint option available to you. If you've got Windows, basically, that's what's available to you. So let's click on App and OS. What do they got? They got the ability to deploy an SQL server really quickly, or just deploy a bare bones Windows 2016 and 2012. So, not 2019 or anything up to date, but obviously Windows 2016 is still pretty good and still going out there strong. But where I think it's really interesting is here. Now, they leverage Bitnami at the back end to basically automate a lot of these deployments, and Bitnami is pretty popular in itself. Even VMware just did a really big deal with Bitnami as well for their cloud platform delivery for applications. So, I first looked at Bitnami probably 10 years ago, and they were doing great things then. It's just amazing to see that they've continued to progress, and obviously this deal with Amazon is quite significant for them. So basically, you've got all your normal ones. If you're looking at turnkey Linux deployments, this is effectively, the top that you're going to get. So they've catered to that sort of market there. But for me, I wanted to deploy a quick WordPress site. Tells you a little bit about it. You can go some launch script. You obviously do need to create a SSH key pair as well. So it won't look at the existing ones that exist in your EC2 setup. So you might have to create a new one, or you can import one as well. So you can actually import that shell script. Plans though, here's where it becomes really interesting. Fixed term costs per month, okay? First month free, but for as low as $3.50 per month, you're getting a web server of that type of spec, right? Now, obviously that's not a heap there, but when you look at $10 to $20 per month, 4 gigs of memory, 2 vCPUs, 80 gigs of storage on SSD, mind you, and 4 terabytes of data transfer, that's pretty significant. And, for me, back in the day, if I was looking at this, running my own web hosting company, I'd be like, how do we compete against this? So it's quite an interesting play here that they've gone and really low, but again, the key here is predictability. And they've even got larger ones. So let's see new sizes here. So as high as 160 per month, you've got the ability to deploy a 32 gig, 8 vCPU machine, okay, which is huge. So, while it says simple applications, the ability to deploy something of these size actually means that you can, get something out there quite reasonable. Memory there, if we're sorting by memory, obviously it's going to do the sorting, processing 8 vCPUs, and then the transfer. So everything there, but basically price per month, I find this to be really, really competitive, almost annoyingly. So it's that easy. So let's go through here very quickly and create this WordPress instance. Let's just use the defaults. You can obviously create a number. In fact, let's create 2. I'm going to actually delete these pretty much straight away. In terms of the SSH key, let's have a look here. So using the default SSH key pair for your instance, let's create a new one. Let's go here. Actually, let's use the one I used before just to keep things simple. So I've got one down there for the previous application. You can add tags and value tags. So if you wanted to tag these machines still like any EC2 instance, you can. And then basically hit go, and there we go. These are going to spin up. They've also got a link out to GoDaddy, where you can basically link these instances to do some Ssl management, which I thought was quite interesting. I mean, I use the different SSL certificate. I actually use Cloudflare, to be fair. So for a free SSL, I leverage Cloudflare for a lot of my websites. So while those are being built, let's have a look and see the one that I've got already in existence, which is the GTWGT. Stay tuned on that, by the way. It's coming out, more information on that a little bit later on. Effectively, you can see here is that, I've got this 4 gig, 2 vCPU, 80 gig SSD instance. I've got the public IP address. I've got the username listed there. So they do build in a lot of good information about how to actually access the usernames and how it's all protected, it's all secure, what you'd expect from AWS in terms of connectivity. You can connect via SSH, which is a really cool way to get into the box quickly. So if we go to storage, we can see what we've got running there. It's got some really cool metrics, which I like. If we look at the metrics here, it's got CPU burstability, it's got CPU utilization. We can go and change let's have a look here if I go up and change to networking, or let's go down to incoming traffic and outgoing traffic. You can see here that this site has had a few bits of traffic coming in, so the inbuilt monitoring is pretty steady, right? Again, if I was to compare this to where the hosting industry was at for these type of applications, it's well on par with anything that you're going to get from a high-end web hoster, right? The networking there, again, static IP, private IP, you've got your basic firewalling, and if I had load balancing set up, you'd have that going as well. The snapshotting, this is where you can actually do, I guess, backups, or even if it's a snapshot-based backup. I'd love to see some integration from Veeam into this, and I've actually started to push them there. So if you have a recommendation for that and a requirement, please let me know. But you can see here that I've basically enabled automatic snapshots for basically every day, and you can see here that I've got one particular snapshot there on June 11. And then basically from there, you've got abilities to stop or start the instance and go from there. Pretty standard, right? I think one of the cool things, though, like I alluded to, was the fact that you've got the ability here to connect using SSH, and that's going to open another browser, and it's going to automatically tunnel through and get straight to the actual console itself. So, yeah, I think this is pretty cool. So this is just the WordPress instance, and from here you've got all the settings, all the normal commands that you can do. You can see here that it's got a list of applications. We're in the root directory here. We're not in as a root user, sorry, so we've got a sudo every command that we do. You can see here that it's got the application password. I'm not going to open that text file, but basically that's where that initial password is stored, so you can actually get it and the credentials. So you've got to have some level of security to get in there. If I do actually installed HTOP, I was like HTOP. But you can see here that we've got a lot of the systems running. We've got Apache running as a web server. It's running MySQL for the WordPress website as well, and a few other bits and pieces, right? So I think this is pretty cool to be able to, console. And this console was the holy trinity of web hosting back in the day. The ability to have not just virtual instance hosted, but also to get to the console. You don't understand how difficult this was to have set up and to execute from a hosting provider's point of view. And now the fact that we take it for granted like this and it's built in. I mean, vCloud Director does this, obviously, but it's very important to be able to get onto the console just to do stuff. So I'm pretty impressed with that as well. Okay, let's have a look and see how those other instances are going. So let's go back to the home page. And you can see that they're already set up there. So, now if I wanted to, I could basically, create a load balance application across these two. I could create and share a database here for those particular instances. So, not so much of WordPress, because they're basically, self-managed. They're self-contained in terms of they've got the databases. But if you were to create a couple of Linux web servers, Bare OS, you could create the database and then go for your life with the web hosting and load balancing from there. So I'm just going to literally stop these so they don't cost me any more money, because everything does cost money in the cloud, like I said. Let's go here. Let's delete these. Haven't actually done this yet, so let's have a look and see. We'll get the warning. Okay, we're going to acknowledge it's deleted. While I do that, though, I think it's probably worthwhile to show that I'm on the same. Let's have a look here and make sure that I'm in Ohio. No, let's change to Ohio there. Just to show you that this is a separate entity to anything that you would see in EC2. So you can see here that I am in Ohio. I've got some running instances here, but if I click on running instances, I technically should not see any of those WordPress Lightsail instances there, no. Okay, so you can see here that I've got a couple of EC2 instances, but they are not linked to Amazon Lightsail. So again, I kind of equate this to be almost like an AWS for dummies, but it's not really that, because obviously you can still do pretty smart things with this. I just see it as being the ability to start off probably small and then build up from there. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool. I think it is something that I didn't know about. I'm leveraging now. I'm sure other people, if they're looking to dip their toe into AWS, it's probably the way to do it. The other thing is there is a way to migrate. So if you come to a point where this application starts to get too big, you need to do things like auto scale and leverage more of the goodness of AWS. You can actually migrate this instance into an EC2, and you can actually tie it to a VPC via a VPC endpoint as well. So then this particular networking that you've got here can actually talk to your VPC networking and be able to interact with other applications that you might have. So that's it. That's basically the quick overview into AWS Lightsail. Again, something that's pretty interesting, and something that I didn't know about. So now hopefully you guys know about it as well. So with that, thank you. And I'll talk to you guys later.